we hear more and more about security. We're seeing so many different data breaches. What kind of challenges does that present?
Each industry has their own challenges, but at the end of the day, the goal is the same. People want to be up, they want IT to work, they want it to be productive, and of course, they want it to be secure.
Thanks for joining us on this BizCast. I'm Amanda Marlowe, and today we are joined with the computer company president and CEO, Kevin Barros. Kevin, welcome to the BizCast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for coming in today. We're excited to hear more about your story. I know that you're a Connecticut native. Tell us a little bit about, how you got to be the president and CEO of this IT company.
Yeah, so I always kind of give the story as it was a kind of an accident. So I kind of started it off individually on my own, just kind of doing a little bit of side work, make a few extra bucks on the weekends and nights. And slowly it kind of grew to one referral to another referral. And as that started to go, I ended up making a name called KBIT Group at the time.
KB, your initials?
Exactly.
Okay.
We weren't very creative. So as time went on, we ended up acquiring a company called Shell Systems back in 2018, I believe. We ended up absorbing their clients with us. And as we kind of grew further and further and further, we ended up acquiring the computer company. And then where we are.
Wow. So were you when you say you were kind of doing it on the sides weekends, were you still in school at the time or did you have another job?
Yes.
Okay.
So there was times where I was still getting my master's and my bachelor's, as well as a full-time job at the time. So it was very difficult, a lot of hours, a lot of white hairs, but it was all worth it kind of in the end. So.
Yeah. Did you knew that IT was something that you wanted?
That's a good question.
But maybe you didn't think you'd be running the company. You just thought you'd be.
Yeah, I always liked IT for the tech. I liked the tech a lot. But I never thought I'd kind of own the company or run a company. That was never kind of a thought in my mind at the time. So
you were IT focused and now you have to think about people and operations and profits, right?
Exactly. So mind shifts kind of today where it's less techie for me today, but it's more how do I deal with folks? How do I deal with clients? How do I grow the company, the marketing, payroll, all the fun stuff.
And so when you acquired that first company in 2018, how many employees were you?
We were still just one, just me, solo, myself and I. So at the time, it was, like I said, it's a lot of challenges to meet client needs, but still have a full-time job, still go to school, still study up. It's a challenge for sure. So
at what point did you say, okay, this is something?
Yeah. So when my week started to get closer to 100 hours a week of work, I kind of said, hey, this just can't continue solo. It needs help. So that's why I ended up buying the computer company and acquiring them and joining. So at the time, we were probably 12 or 13 people back in 2020. And so today we kind of just expanded it over time. So now we're close up to 40 at this point. So I'm still looking for more.
Do you remember your first client?
I do, actually. And they're still with us even till today. So it's been years. But yeah, we appreciate all old clients, but all new clients as well. So we don't play favorites, but we treat them equally.
Okay. And tell us kind of what's the basis of the services you provide?
Yeah, so we do IT services for small, medium businesses and government entities. So we could do anything from help desk support to networking to server. We do a little bit more specialization where we have a data center out in Cromwell, and we also have a data center out in Las Vegas. And we also do development work and website design that kind of makes us a little bit unique as well. So basically anything IT, we can kind of take care of for a client.
And tell me about these data centers. How does that work? When did you decide, okay, Vegas is another good stomping ground?
So when we acquired the computer company, they already had a data center out in Cromwell. But as time went on and as the needs started to grow, clients demanded us to have a higher uptime and just disaster recovery capabilities. And so we needed a data center that was far away from Connecticut as far as possible. And so Las Vegas being on West Coast is as far as we could possibly go. And so we kind of threw that out there for people that want that disaster recovery. So this way, if a hurricane passes by or something, it doesn't wipe out the whole East Coast and takes us out with it. So
great. And you talked a little bit, so clients mostly small to medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So we have some clients that are small. They're just two people, an attorney, maybe a paralegal, and they have very small needs, and there's not that much that we need to do with them. But we also have other clients that are much larger. We have airlines, we have large manufacturing, we have universities that we support. And so those can go from, 100 to 500 people for employees. And if they're dealing with students, they could be anywhere from 8 to 10,000 students that we have to support. So it's a challenge for sure.
So you're really working across a number of industries. What kind of challenges does that present?
Yeah, so each industry has their own challenges. Manufacturing, for example, has a lot of challenges of compliance for CMMC and NIST and ITAR that we have to comply. Healthcare is HIPAA related. So everyone has their own unique challenges. But at the end of the day, the goal is the same. People want to be up. They want IT to work. They want it to be productive. And of course, they want it to be secure and their data safe.
And the security is a great segue into where I was kind of going next. We hear more and more about security. We're seeing so many different data breaches. Is there more demand now, or are the services that you have to provide different? Kind of tell me how things have evolved for you.
Yeah, so security has always been a number one to us. I mean, as a data center, we see a lot of attacks firsthand. And so we kind of learn from those attempts to kind of block clients out. But it is starting to become a bigger and bigger concern. It's not just some kid in a basement overseas like it used to be 20 years ago. That still exists, but it's also now government entities that are kind of encouraging businesses to kind of attack and try to get data from clients. So
what happens to a small business? It's more than just, hey, we've been hacked. Our reputation can kind of go down. What happens, and why is it so important that small businesses have these guidelines in place in terms of cybersecurity?
Yeah, a lot of these compliance, even from the government, they're not meant to be punishments. They're meant to help. And so obviously there's the financial side. You lose those customers, you lose that business, and you financially take that hit, right? But insurance is there. They'll kind of help out, cover some of those losses. But it's also the employees that you're affecting, right? As you're losing business, you're losing those employees from that business. They still have families that they have to provide to. Sure, they can get jobs, but they're still impacted on that day to day. And it's, their clients also kind of second guess them as well, of saying, hey, if this happened to you, how much were you protecting our data to begin with at that point in time? And if you have client data with it, especially if you have like blueprints from like a military jet or something, if those go into the wrong hands, now that repercussion kind of cascades down a lot further. Now, all right, who has those blueprints? Who did you give that money to that you, when you got scammed about, who did you give that money to? Was it a terrorist organization? Who was it at that point in time? So there is a cascading effect to it. It's not just the here and now. So most of our clients that come to us, if they have been compromised, they usually say it's between 12 to 18 months that they're down. So that means they can't focus on their business for 12 or 18 months. They're dealing with the FBI. They're dealing with their insurance companies, dealing with their clients. They're just not focused anymore at that point in time. So they lose that time.
And I'm sure it's difficult for their employees as well.
Yeah, their employees start to question, hey, who am I working for? Because you're paying them so that you have their social security, you have their address, you have their ACH information, you have all that information with them. So they start to question, hey, is this the best place to work with? Especially if that employee is already kind of second guessing their current position. If they're not too happy, it kind of is that tipping point over the edge. So there is a cascading effect to a business once they get hit. So
what's that like when you're talking to clients about that and, new investments that they have to make?
Yeah, it's a tough challenge because especially the smaller the client, they kind of think, hey, I have nothing to lose. Why would they want me? Why not go for a much larger company? But at the end of the day, the smaller ones are the easier targets, and there's a bigger number of them. So it's easy for us to attack 100 potential small ones as opposed to one big one that does have their stuff in order, unless they're a targeted attack at that point. So.
And that really impacts their business down the line.
It does. So, even large companies have breaches. You hear the Home Depots, you hear the big companies that have issues time to time, but those can weather the storm. They can weather that breach, and they could weather the bad publicity for a little bit. But the smaller guys don't have that luxury as much. They don't have the financial backing. So the impact is much greater for those smaller ones for sure. So
where do you see it going? Just, continued additional security? Are there new technologies that have helped make it easier or for the hackers, but also for you? How does that work?
So it makes it easier for when you're getting a government backed by some of these countries. They have a lot of money that they can hire people with, and they can get whatever equipment they need to do these attacks. So it becomes a challenge to kind of fight that money back. It's also a challenge for new tech. In some ways, things like AI is great and it helps us, but that also poses new challenges. We've seen a lot of fake audio where it sounds like an owner of a company, but it's really not, and they're calling their bank to try to withdraw money. So it does create new challenges with AI that didn't exist, a few years ago too, so that we have to kind of attack.
Are companies less, when they're thinking about using new AI technologies, are they coming to you and saying, hey, is this going to open us up to security threats?
They are. So the nice thing is everybody's kind of into this AI and everybody wants it. It's a little bit misleading, I think. Some folks think it's about, hey, we're going to cost 20 jobs and save a ton of fortune. But in reality, that's not the case. It's to empower employees quite a bit more, be more productive, make less errors, provide more data to management who needs it. So it's not the job killer that everybody, I think, is afraid of as much. So
have you had to add another layer of security when it comes to AI and cybersecurity?
Yeah, so we have some dedicated folks at our team that just focus on security and just focus on compliance. And that's their one and sole job, is just to help out with clients, review their networks, review their infrastructure, make those recommendations. And if it's something we could just apply and do behind the scenes, we'll apply it. If it does have a financial backing that we need some sort of financial support with it, then we bring that up to the client, have that discussion about the risk reward type of on that. So.
Okay. Let's talk about your team a little bit. So you grew pretty quickly. What were some of the challenges with that? And like you said, you started an IT guy, and having to now work with employees, help train them, bring them on. Tell me about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Everybody's different. They have different cultures, different backgrounds, and we actually really like that. That's what we kind of brag the most about. We love bragging about where people's backgrounds are from. It kind of makes us a little bit unique, gives us different perspectives. But some of those challenges too, they are different backgrounds, they are different cultures, they're from different areas of the country or different countries. And that becomes a challenge about keeping them motivated and also training them up so they're educated and want to continue their career. So that becomes a challenge with it. But we really encourage them to kind of get better, take that training, learn something new, push the envelope, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And if that means eventually they leave us, then that's perfectly fine. We're perfectly fine with that. We want to see people grow, even if that's not with us. So,
do a lot of your employees work in person, mostly remote? What's the setup?
Yes, so we're very unique there. So we prefer to keep it here local. We like to see people's faces. We like to interact, have lunch with you, all that kind of fun stuff. That said, though, we do have, wild employees everywhere. We have employees out in North Carolina. We have one down in Florida, one in Ohio. We have one in Italy that currently works for us, and we're just hiring one out in Texas. So they're kind of all over the place, which makes it fun. So
you're kind of homegrown here, so to speak. You graduated from a local university. Why stay in Connecticut with this business?
We've had plenty of opportunities to kind of move some parts of the business to other states. But because I am kind of homegrown here and this is my, backyard kind of speak, I have this push to kind of stay here, even if there is some struggles, even if it could be more profitable somewhere else. We want to keep hometown here. So this is kind of where it started. And we do want to give back to the community where I came from. So again, I'm a Central graduate over at Central Connecticut State University. We love students from there. We love hiring them, giving them the opportunity, giving them the training. So we want to give back to the community whenever possible. So
what do you enjoy most about being and operating here in Connecticut?
I love the people. I love the culture. I mean, we're stuck in between Boston and New York. And so that kind of gives us, a lot of range for different clients and different businesses. But again, it's also that cultural differences. We have a lot of different folks that migrate here, that they're first-time business owners, or they took their family's business over. And I love seeing that. I love, getting a client that they're third or fourth or fifth generation. I kind of like seeing that kind of business grow. So
Are there any things that you think could help make it, better for you to do business here? I know you are dedicated, you want to stay here, but what are there certain things? Is it regulations? What's kind of hampering you?
Yeah, for us, I mean, we're a data center. So our biggest costs, for example, are fiber and electricity. That's our biggest, what we consume the most. So those are extremely costly here in Connecticut versus somebody out like in Vegas. I mean, electricity costs and fiber costs are less than half of the cost there. Same with somewhere like New York City that has the city full of fiber. But again, we like to kind of keep it here to be a little bit different, be less competitive. It's a little bit less competitive, but we like it here.
But lowering those costs would be most beneficial to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're also seeing a struggle too with employees, to kind of hire, good skill set. There's a lot of employees that study here and then just move out to different countries, not different countries, my apologies, different states, places like Texas or Florida. They have the nice weather, the lower tax brackets. And so employees typically jump ship to go to those places. So
the good thing is you can keep some of them, right?
I could keep some of them when they do move, which is great. So,
but you also, are so pro Connecticut that you can encourage, hey, look what I've been able to do here,
correct.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
what, in terms of, being homegrown in Connecticut, are there any mentors or other people that you've looked to as you've helped grow your business?
Yeah. So, I mean, who really encouraged me to grow my business was a family member of mine. And he was kind of like, listen, you can do this, yeah, there's a risk. Yeah, it's going to be stressful. Yeah, you're going to hate it some days. But you got to just do it. And he kind of helped me out with some paperwork that I needed to kind of get registered and to take loans. And I really, really appreciated that. And I cannot thank him enough for helping me out with that. So
that's a great story. I love to hear that. And it's really great to see how you've grown so far. What's next for the computer company?
Yeah, so we still want to grow. So 40 is cool. 400 would be better. So, so we want to continue to kind of grow, and we are. We're looking for additional acquisitions to kind of put under our belt. We are kind of trying to expand out. So we're trying to get closer to that New York area. We're trying to get closer to the Massachusetts area. So that way we can kind of cover the state as a whole, and also introduce new states more into our pool, which is nice. So,
what was some of the biggest challenges that you faced when acquiring? I wouldn't say the first company, but the computer company when you really started to grow.
Yeah, acquiring a business is difficult. A lot of people think it's just money driven, and yes, money is a conversation in that. How much are you going to pay me to buy me out? But you have to also think that old business owner, they might have been at that business for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so it's kind of their baby as well. And they want to know that it's going to be taken care of. Some of them don't care about the extra money. They care more, are you going to take care of the employees? How are you going to treat my clients after I leave? And that is more important to them than the dollar amount sometimes. So it's trying to show or build that trust with them to kind of say, hey, don't worry about it. I got it. We can take it to the next level. To kind of do that too. So,
and are there any people on your team that you turn to really help you with that people aspect and aligning all of not just in IT, the processes, but people processes as well?
Yeah. So I push on all of our employees that I do not know all the answers, nor do I pretend to know them all, and I want feedback from folks. Where are they struggling with? What can we do better? We do have management, of course, that kind of helps build those processes like you speak. And those processes then get automated as much as humanly possible. So that way it doesn't slip through the cracks. We have automation to kind of catch these things. So, which is nice. That's what our developers are great for at this point in time. So
how do you keep your employee? How do you help, equip your employees? Obviously, this is a changing landscape. How do you help them continue their training and stay up to date on everything?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically the old fashioned stuff, hey, we can get you books, we can get you training courses, and we, you can get certifications, and we push folks for that, of course. But even like today, for example, we have a weekly training that we kind of focus on a topic. We get all the employees together and talk about that topic, which is great. They help motivate each other, which is also kind of nice associated with it. But we want to educate them as best as possible. And then, of course, we're a data center. We have a lot of old equipment that we don't need anymore. And so with that old equipment, we give that to our employees and say, hey, I know this is an older firewall. I know this is an older server. But it was like 50 grand at one point in time. So why don't you just take it and have fun with it and learn at home a little bit? So they love that. So
that's awesome.
Spouses, not so much when they hear the noise, but
right?
That's the fun part of it.
Look at the toy I came home with. Then they really get going. So you said the training, so that happens once a week. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah. So typically every week we grab the employees either early morning or afternoon, depending on what's the best time. And we focus just on a topic. So it might just be about Microsoft Copilot, for example, for AI, or the conditional access rules, or the new version of Office and what that includes, or the new version of Windows and what that includes. So we pick a topic, we just stay focused on that, but we try to become pros at that topic together a little bit. So, and struggle with it together. So
okay, so it's all internal. You don't bring someone in. It's usually internal, and you work through and talk through.
Correct. If employees do want to take advantage to go outside to like a course or like a university or something, we're perfectly fine with that as well, and we encourage that, and we help pay for that. So that kind of helps them out. So
interesting. So you really take on those projects together as a team, and it's weekly, so people can expect it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to be as a team, because if it's just one department that's really good, that's awesome for that department, but the rest of the company is weak and the clients see that. So it needs to be one cohesive company basically as a whole. So
that's really interesting. And I think a good model to implement. We hear so many different companies talking about upskilling and what's the best way to do this? How do we get this done? But to have that dedicated time, on a weekly basis, I think is really important.
Yeah, it helps build a culture that the management or the CEO is not just some person that comes in, closes their door, has 20 meetings, and they're gone. They're heavily involved with their employees day to day. The packed snacks and the cafeteria, those are great, but they want to know that they're part of a bigger cause, that they're not, it's not just a job, that they add value to it. So, which is great.
And you had mentioned before about employees. Do you think some, use you as a stopping ground to go on? But do you think some of that training helps kind of maintain employees and keep them?
It does, because it motivates them to move up. So as the company grows, if you started on the help desk and you're like, listen, I think I could do the networking stuff now. I've played around with it. I could do it. We give them that opportunity. Hey, listen, there's a client project coming up. We'll have somebody besides you just to make sure everything goes well. But go for it, and we kind of move them up. And if they say, hey, listen, this isn't for me, it's too stressful, then we respect their decision and we move on. We don't really hold them to non-competes or anything like that. We treat them as a person at that point. So they really like that. So
you get to do a lot of different things, started out really focused on IT, now have grown the company. What do you think is the favorite part of your job? And then maybe the favorite part of your everyday?
Yeah. So I love what we do. I didn't do this on the side because I hated it or anything like that. I really, really love our customers. And we treat them as almost like they're an employee or part of the business and that sort. And I like kind of seeing that we implement some sort of a tech and they kind of expand and grow. I like seeing when they go from 40 people to 100 as well. But more importantly, we like being the hero. We like coming in and, having a business that's struggling with tech, implement something, and then they kind of improve it. And you can kind of see that improvement and know, hey, I did that. That was us that did that. So that kind of makes us really exciting. So
somewhat of like a instant, not so instant, but you really can see that gratification. It's not, there's clear data or a clear problem and a solution that's implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a prime example. We had a client where this individual employee spent about 35 hours a week doing reports. We helped to automate that, and we brought that down from 35 hours a week down to about 8 hours a week. So it's great to say, all right, what are you going to do now with the rest of your time? So it's kind of fun.
Awesome. And what do you think is the favorite part of your everyday?
A favorite part of every day is, I really like the employees. They're our everything to it. I like seeing them when they're on the phone and helping somebody out. I love seeing when they kind of get really excited about tech and saying, hey, I figured this out, and they're bragging about it to the rest of the employees. I really love the team. Yeah, the team is everything to us. The company is not just me; it's them. So
yeah, no, I noticed even from the beginning, everything's we. So it certainly.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with. I'm one pawn in the whole game. So
as we think about your growth and where you started and where you are today, as a leader, is there anything, you have any mantras or specific advice for other leaders, like yourself, maybe, who started as entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always dark times, even in the larger businesses. So, just keep your head up and push forward. And the other thing that we always got told, and we kind of learned a lot, is just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time around, but just do something, anything, and then you could always improve the process over time. It doesn't have to be perfect on that first shot. So,
was there anything for you where, you were thinking about that first acquisition that really just said, okay, I'm just going to do it? Was there something that kind of pushed you over the edge?
So our first acquisition was a much smaller company at the time. And so we kind of said, hey, this is going to be dipping the toes into it. In a business, we kind of look at, or at least I look at it as almost like a child. You have to feed it to kind of grow that business. So you have to take risks. You have to put money into it. You're not always going to get a return on it. You have to accept that. But if you can accept that and you could take that gamble, some of those gambles pay off, and for the long run at that point. So
did that second gamble pay off then for you?
That second gamble paid off quite well, which is really great for us. But we're hoping the third and the fourth will also kind of pan out as well for it. So
great. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on this BizCast. And, we look forward to seeing what's in the future for the computer company.
Yeah, we're excited. Invite us back out. So.
Well, thank you for listening to this week's BizCast. You can listen, like, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review and let us know if you have ideas for a future podcast. And for a full list of episodes, head on over to CBIA.com.